Throughout the course of this semester, we have touched on many different aspects of Indigenous peoples' lives. To go along with that, we have had a main focus on the ways in which they approach food and how food affects not only our lives but our bodies as well. To Indigenous people, food is more than just simply something that you eat. To them, it is a way of life and something that they have curated over many, many years. Back in earlier times, when things were much more simple, a majority of the food that was eaten was either hunted for, gathered, or farmed. Because so much time was spent hunting, gathering, and preparing food, it was only natural for Indigenous people to become acquainted with their areas. This led to many different methods of preparing the food that they ate to be passed down upon generations. The main issue with this is that as time passed, different scenarios occurred where tribes and Indigenous people were not given as much access to said food and said areas of land that they had become so acquainted with. This led to tribes in today's world becoming dependent on both government-funded food resources as well as being able to be given permission to go and hunt or gather as they used to. An issue with becoming dependent on the government is that a lot of the food that you might get most of the time may not be as healthy as you may like. This could lead to issues down the line, such as diabetes, obesity, and if you're giving these foods to your child at a young age, they're only more susceptible to growing into those illnesses. The direction I decided to go in regards to my video is to go out and look at foods from 3 different stores in order to see how the prices change when you go from store to store. The problem with healthy foods is that they are often expensive, and in order to obtain them, you are going to need a large salary or be able to get by while sacrificing other aspects of your life. One difference between many Indigenous people and myself is that I have the luxury to be able to go and obtain certain foods at any moment's notice due to transportation, due to money, you name it. So I wanted to keep that in mind as we approach this video, and I wanted to show you guys the ways in which eating healthy is an issue at times. Many people are often limited to their reservation, so I wanted to add this as a pretext. Although it may be simple, one thing taken for granted is the accessibility of grocery stores and local places to get food. For me, I'm lucky enough to only be 2 miles and a 5-minute drive. However, for many Indigenous people living on reservations, it is common for them to have a lot harder time finding places to eat. To add on to the accessibility issue, like I spoke of before, oftentimes many of these foods are processed and are expensive. A good example here is the prices of pears, bananas, plums, whereas you get to the more organic, quote-unquote healthier foods and the prices skyrocket. Not only do prices skyrocket, but when you go into these grocery stores to get food, they are filled with options such as these processed foods that are unhealthy and can lead to further issues down the line health-wise. And to nobody's surprise, the more processed the foods are, the cheaper they get. As foods begin to become organic and are given that label, the price rises and they become harder to attain. So, we have all of these barring issues in order to simply obtain organic foods, and there's still a chance that the foods being sold to us organically are still processed as they are brought into the grocery stores. Because of this, it is important to decolonize our diets and become more aware and more adaptable to the land around us and our environment. So, to all my fellow peers and colleagues who may come across this video, I pose to you a couple of questions. How will you decolonize your diet? Will you find new ways to produce your own sources of food? How will you adjust to the rising prices of organic, healthy food?